You remember the exact moment it happened. It wasn't a loud explosion, and it wasn't a dramatic argument. It was a quiet, terrifying click inside your chest. For years, you had been the sponge. You were the one who absorbed the anxiety of your parents, the secret depressions of your friends, and the unspoken anger of your partner. You were the walking therapy session, the one who could walk into a room and immediately sense the temperature of everyone's emotions. You prided yourself on this. You thought your boundless capacity to feel was your greatest virtue. But then, the click happened. Suddenly, you looked at the person crying in front of you, perhaps someone you loved deeply, and you felt absolutely nothing. No urge to fix it, no desperate need to soothe them, no mirrored sadness, just a cold, glassy silence. And immediately after that silence came the fear. You looked in the mirror and wondered, have I become a monster? Have I finally turned into the narcissists I spent my whole life trying to heal? You feel broken, as if the engine of your humanity has suddenly stalled. But listen closely, because this is the most important thing you will hear today. You are not broken. You have not lost your soul. What you are experiencing is not a defect. It is a biological and spiritual override. Carl Jung warned us that we cannot live solely in the light of self-sacrifice without eventually summoning the darkness of self-preservation. You have entered a state of compassion bankruptcy. Your psyche has declared Chapter 11. It has shut down the factory because the cost of production became too high. This numbness you feel is not the end of your empathy. It is the beginning of your authority. You are standing at the threshold of a dangerous but necessary transformation. If you can navigate this coldness without getting lost in it, you will not return to who you were before. You will become something far more powerful. You will evolve from a frantic absorber into a sovereign observer. But there is a trap here, a specific, seductive trap that catches the empath who finally sets boundaries. If you step wrong, you risk becoming the very thing you despise. But if you step right, you unlock a level of psychological power that Jung described as the integration of the shadow. To understand why this happened, we must look at the mechanics of your exhaustion. For years, you have likely operated under a hyper-attuned persona. You trained your brain to scan for threats in the moods of others. In modern neuroscience, we know that high empathy individuals often have hyperactive mirror neuron systems. You literally simulate the pain of others in your own neural pathways. It is physically exhausting. Your body has been flooded with cortisol, the stress hormone, simply by existing near unhappy people. Eventually, the brain says, enough. To prevent a total systemic collapse, your mind erects what we can call the emotional firewall. This firewall cuts the connection. It blocks the incoming data of other people's feelings so that your own system can reboot. This is why you feel that sudden, shocking indifference. It is a survival mechanism, as automatic as shivering when you are cold. Jung believed that the psyche is a self-regulating system, much like the body. When one side is overused, in your case the side of giving, yielding and merging, the unconscious mind swings the pendulum violently to the opposite side to restore balance. This is not a sin, it is gravity. However, this swing is violent. It feels dangerous because it is unfamiliar. You are used to being the good person. You have built your entire identity on being the one who cares the most. So, when the care evaporates, you feel like you are losing your identity. You feel a dark, ruthless power rising up, a voice that says, I don't care if they are hurting, I just want to be left alone. This voice terrifies you. But Jung would tell you to invite this voice in for tea. This is your shadow, finally speaking up after years of being gagged. The danger isn't the coldness. The danger is that you might misunderstand what the coldness is for. Many people reach this stage and panic. They try to force themselves to care again, ripping down the firewall before the system has rebooted, leading to a total breakdown. Others go to the opposite extreme. They decide that empathy was a weakness all along, and they solidify into bitterness, permanently closing their hearts. Both of these paths lead to ruin. The true path, the one that leads to what Jung called individuation, requires you to sit in this uncomfortable frozen space and study it. Let us look at a specific dynamic to make this concrete. Consider the story of a man we will call Elias. Elias was the classic peacemaker. He grew up in a volatile home where his safety depended on predicting his father's temper. He carried this into adulthood, becoming the man who never said no, the employee who worked late to cover for others, the partner who apologized for arguments he didn't start. Elias believed his endurance was a form of love. He thought that if he just absorbed enough of everyone else's chaos, eventually there would be peace. Then, during a holiday dinner, his brother made a passive-aggressive comment. The same kind of comment Elias had laughed off 1,000 times, but this time, Elias didn't laugh. He didn't feel hurt. He didn't feel the need to de-escalate the tension in the room. He felt a sudden, icy clarity. He looked at his brother and saw him not as a threat, but as a small, pathetic child acting out a script. Elias stood up, calmly picked up his coat, and walked out of the house without saying a word. He didn't explain. He didn't look back. He blocked his family's numbers for 3 months. In those 3 months, Elias felt a strange euphoria mixed with guilt. He felt powerful. For the first time, his energy was his own. But he also felt a chilling detachment. When his mother called from a strange number crying, he felt like he was watching a movie character cry. The emotional connection had been severed. This is the 0 point. It is the moment where the empath realizes that their empathy was not always a gift. Often, it was a trauma response. It was a way to control the environment to feel safe. Now that Elias no longer needed that specific safety, the empathy vanished. But here is where the danger lies for Elias, and perhaps for you. The relief of the 0 point is so addictive that you might decide to live there forever. You might mistake this detachment for enlightenment. You might think, I have ascended. I am above these petty human emotions. But true power is not the absence of feeling. True power is the ability to choose when to feel. Jung taught that if we do not integrate the shadow, if we do not acknowledge that we are capable of being cold, selfish, and ruthless, then the shadow possesses us. We become possessed by the very coldness we are using to protect ourselves. You are currently swinging from the archetype of the martyr to the archetype of the tyrant. This pendulum swing is natural, but you cannot stay at the extreme end of the swing. You must find the center. The first step in this hazardous journey is to stop judging the coldness. Stop trying to fix your lack of empathy. You are currently in a state of psychic winter. In winter, the trees look dead. They have no leaves, no fruit, no soft green shoots. But they are not dead. They are pulling their sap deep into the roots to survive the frost. If a tree tried to bloom in the middle of a blizzard, it would die. You are currently pulling your energy into your roots. You are retrieving the pieces of your soul that you left in other people's hands. This retrieval process often manifests in 3 distinct stages. Understanding which stage you are in is critical, because the cure for one stage is the poison for another. You might think you are done with people forever, but you are likely just in the first, most volatile stage of the boundaries process. Let's examine these stages. The first stage is the violent withdrawal. This is usually triggered by a betrayal or a moment of extreme exhaustion, like Elias at the dinner table. In this stage, your boundaries are not gates, they are brick walls topped with razor wire. You cut people off. You quit jobs without notice. You end relationships over what seems like small infractions. To the outside world, you look like you have gone insane. They say, "You've changed. You used to be so nice." And they are right. You have changed. You have stopped being nice because nice was killing you. In this stage, your anger is a guardian. It is standing at the door of your psyche with a flamethrower, burning anything that tries to take your energy. It is ugly. It is messy. But it is necessary. You cannot negotiate with parasites. You have to burn them off. The sharp reframe here is crucial. This explosive anger is not a sign of instability. It is the return of your self-respect. It is your psyche screaming no after a lifetime of whispering yes. But you cannot live with a flamethrower forever. If you stay in the violent withdrawal too long, you become isolated and paranoid. You begin to view every human interaction as a transaction where you might get robbed. This leads to the second, more subtle stage, the strategic numbness. In this phase, the chaotic heat of the flamethrower is replaced by the cool hum of a supercomputer. You stop reacting. When someone tries to guilt trip you, instead of feeling that familiar pang in your chest, that desperate urge to explain yourself or apologize, you feel nothing. You simply watch them. You analyze their words like data points on a screen. You might think, oh, they are using a manipulation tactic. How interesting. This terrifies the people around you far more than your anger did. Anger implies that you still care, that you are still engaged in the dance. But this numbness? It is a vacuum. It signals that you have left the building. In modern psychological terms, you have shifted from affective empathy, feeling what they feel, to cognitive empathy, knowing what they feel without catching the infection. Your prefrontal cortex is finally regulating your limbic system. You are no longer drowning in the ocean, you are watching the storm from a lighthouse. The reframe here is vital. You are not becoming sociopathic. You are entering energy conservation mode. For the first time in your life, you are not leaking vitality. You are hoarding it. You are realizing that your energy is a currency, and you have stopped throwing it into bottomless pits. You are beginning to sleep better. The brain fog lifts. You feel a strange, quiet strength returning to your limbs. But this brings us to the third and most perilous stage. This is the trap Jung warned about, the shadow of the golden shadow. We call this the spiritual fortress. Because this new detachment feels so good, so safe, and so powerful, you may begin to overcorrect. You start to view emotion itself as a weakness. You look at your friends who are still stuck in their dramas, crying over the same toxic partners, complaining about the same fixable problems, and you don't just feel indifferent, you feel superior. A subtle arrogance begins to creep into your psyche. You think, why can't they just see it? Why are they so weak? I have ascended beyond this. This is the danger of the empathic God complex. When you finally build a wall to keep the pain out, you often forget to put a door in it. You become safe, yes, but you also become sterile. You risk becoming the wise old man or wise woman who sits on top of the mountain but refuses to come down to the village because the village is too low vibration for them. Jung called this inflation. The ego identifies with the archetype of the savior or the sage and blows up like a balloon. If you stay here, you do not become a healed empath. You become a cynic. You become the person who analyzes everyone but connects with no one. You have traded the chaos of the swamp for the suffocation of a vacuum-sealed room. The safety you craved becomes a prison of your own making. You are untouched, yes, but you are also untouchable. And humans were not designed to be untouched forever. So, how do we escape this fortress without tearing down the walls and letting the enemy back in? How do we thaw the ice without drowning in the flood? The solution lies in what we will call the porous shield. This is the final and most difficult stage of your evolution. It is the shift from automatic absorption to selective reception. Imagine your empathy is no longer a door that is permanently kicked open, allowing every stray wind to blow through your house. Nor is it a bricked-up wall that lets nothing in. It is now a high-tech airlock. You stand at the controls. You look at the person in front of you, your crying friend, your angry partner, the stranger on the street, and you make a conscious, split-second decision. You ask yourself, do I have the capacity to process this right now? Is this person asking for help, or are they just dumping toxic waste? If the answer is no, you keep the airlock closed. You offer them cognitive compassion. You can say, I see you are in pain and I am sorry, but you do not open your chest plate. You do not let their frequency override yours. You remain a witness, not a participant. But, and this is the key, if the answer is yes, if it is someone you love and you have the energy, you can choose to open the lock. You can choose to feel. You step into the water with them, hold them, weep with them, and then, when the moment is done, you step out and dry yourself off. This is the superpower. It is the ability to visit the underworld of human suffering without taking up residence there. This transition requires you to develop a new internal vocabulary. You must stop saying, I am overwhelmed, and start saying, I am currently at capacity. You must stop feeling guilty for your limits. In physics, a bridge has a load limit. If you drive a tank over a footbridge, it collapses. The bridge is not evil for collapsing, it is simply obeying the laws of physics. You have a load limit. Respecting it is not cruelty, it is structural integrity. This is where the true work of individuation begins. Jung believed that the goal of life is not to be good, meaning compliant, harmless, and pleasing. The goal is to be whole. A whole person has a shadow. A whole person has teeth. The reason you were so exhausted before is that you were trying to be a lamb in a world of wolves. You thought that if you were just soft enough, the wolves would stop biting. But the dark, healing truth is that you must discover your inner wolf to protect the lamb. The coldness you felt? That was your inner wolf waking up. That was your aggression, your capacity for boundaries, your ability to say no and mean it. You need that wolf. You need that coldness. It is the spine that holds you upright. When you integrate this, something magical happens in your external reality. People stop treating you like a dumping ground. It is almost telepathic. When you possessed no boundaries, you signaled to every narcissist and energy vampire within a 10-mile radius that you were open for business. They could sense your need to please. But now, when you possess the capacity for coldness, you broadcast a different signal. You broadcast self-respect. You will find that the people who only loved you for your utility will fade away. Let them go. They were not friends, they were customers, and you have closed the shop. But the people who remain? The ones who respect your no as much as your yes, those are your real tribe. They will love you not for what you can absorb for them, but for who you are. But let us deepen this. There is a specific technique for maintaining this porous shield in real time, a mental motion you can practice when you feel the old urge to merge rising up. We call it the benevolent witness. Next time you are in the presence of high-intensity emotion, perhaps your boss is shouting or a family member is spiraling, visualize that you are a researcher from a different dimension. You are here to study human behavior, not to fix it. You are wearing an invisible hazmat suit. The emotions in the room are like a thick, colored gas. If you breathe them in, you get sick. So, you engage your internal respiratory system. You breathe your own air. You listen. You nod. You maintain eye contact. But internally, you are reciting a mantra of separation. This is their storm. I am the dry land. This is their storm. I am the dry land. You will be amazed at how this subtle mental shift changes the chemistry of the room. Often, when you refuse to pick up the rope in a tug-of-war, the other person stops pulling. They run out of momentum because you are not feeding them your reaction energy. Your calmness acts as a mirror, forcing them to see their own chaos, often for the first time. This is the ultimate paradox of the empath's journey. By becoming less helpful in the traditional self-sacrificing sense, you actually become more helpful in the spiritual sense. When you were a sponge, you just helped people stay stuck in their patterns by absorbing the consequences of their emotions for them. You enabled them. By becoming a sovereign observer, you force them to carry their own backpacks. You give them the dignity of their own struggle. Jung often spoke of the alchemical process, where the substance must be broken down and blackened, the nigredo, before it can be turned into gold. Your period of numbness, of feeling like a monster, of compassion bankruptcy, this was your nigredo. It was the necessary darkening. You had to burn down the naive, people-pleasing persona to reveal the gold of the authentic self underneath. Do not rush to the end of this script and think you are done. This integration is a practice, not a destination. You will fail. You will have days where you slide back into being a sponge, and days where you lock the fortress too tight and freeze everyone out. That is okay. You are learning to drive a manual transmission after years of riding a bicycle. You will stall the engine. But remember the feeling of that click. Remember the 0 point. That was not the death of your heart. That was the birth of your boundaries. That was the moment you realized that you have the right to exist for yourself, not just as a resource for others. As you move forward, carry this final image with you. Imagine a lighthouse. The lighthouse does not run around the shore, frantically trying to save every boat. It does not plunge itself into the waves to hold the ships up. It stands on the rock. It shines its light. It is solid, consistent, and unmoving. Because it is unmoving, the ships can find their way. If the lighthouse tried to move to help the ships, it would cease to be a lighthouse, and everyone would be lost. Be the lighthouse, not the lifeboat. We are reaching the end of this transmission, but the work is just beginning. You are now aware of the mechanics of your own soul. You know that your coldness is a shield, not a weapon. You know that your empathy is a choice, not a curse. The world needs empaths, but it does not need more martyrs. It needs warriors who can see the darkness without being consumed by it. It needs you to be strong enough to keep your heart open and wise enough to know when to close the gate. Walk with your shadow, trust your coldness, and use your warmth with precision. See you in the next dimension.